In part one of the Lifetime narrative featuring owner and breeder Howard Hamilton, the spotlight was shining on his early involvement in horse racing and corporate endeavors. In part two, the emphasis shifts to racetrack successes and failures. Quick Gallop, jhay.com, and its YouTube channel, The Quick Galloper, share part two of the Howard Hamilton Lifetime narrative.
We looked at your early life, Bulmer's, your corporate life with Shell, and your life, professional life with the promoting company. Let's get back into racing now. Owned a lot of horses. Took a long time.
Too many.
To reap some success, right? Then came some glorious years with two horses in particular, distinctly Irish.
And King is Born.
And A King is Born. Tell me, first of all, how you got those two horses to buy, what it felt like winning your first derby.
Well, I started off owning a lot of horses. At one stage I had 43 horses in racing, and I went to all various jockeys, arm trainers, Error War, Pinchin, Fisney Williams, Philip Fiani, and a number of trainers. I had a horse called Formality, which I bought with two other friends. It was trained by Ralph Zede, and he left, and then Howard Mackenzie took it over from his stables after that. But let me go back now to the glory days. Philip selected King is Born for me. And when I saw the horse, I'm asking if he was mad because it looked like a little runt. And he says, this King is Born turned out to be a fantastic animal, winning from 5 furlongs to a mile and a half.
But why would you call why would you say that Mr. Fiani is mad when you know nothing about horses?
Because to me the horse looked like a little rat, right? Small and thing. Well, anyhow, you know the success of that. So the horse won the derby, and it brought tears to my eyes. And of course that was a feature of all the pictures about. And right after that year he also bought Distinctly Irish, which was by the same mother as King is Born, out of Irish Quest. That one won the derby by about 15 lengths. That's an interesting little story I'll give you about King is Born, about Distinctly Irish. We had a visitor out here who came to speak at the Hall of Fame function, who was an agent for the Saudi Arabian racing people. He saw the horse run, and he said, look, can you send me that horse? So I said, take a video of the horse and bring it up to me when you come to Saratoga. So I took a video of the race, carried it up to him. And his name was Mustafa. And I said, here's a picture. He says, will you accept $1 million for the horse? I said, which leg you want for the $1 million? And he said, be serious, Mr. Hamilton. And I shook his hand and said, we have a deal. Right? Distinctly Irish.
So let us be clear, that's $1 million US.
Correct. I said to him, the horse are gelding in there, can't breed. He said, I don't want any breeding horse in Saudi Arabia. I want horses who can stay forever. And the deal was signed. I shook his hand. That was on a Saturday. There was no racing on Monday. There was no racing on Tuesday. Went back to the track on Wednesday at Saratoga. And the agent came to me and said, I have some bad news for you. Mustafa was crossing the road on Sunday. A car hit him down and he's dead. And that was the end of the sale of Distinctly Irish.
Okay. You had the glorious moment of going into the winner's enclosure at the end of a derby where A King is Born. In those days, the classic races went as follows. You had the 1,000, the 2,000, the Jamaica Oaks, then you had the Derby, and then you had the St. Leger.
Right.
Distinctly Irish won the 2,000 guineas. Distinctly Irish won the Jamaica Derby, and then
lost
the Triple Crown by a nostril to Run Papa Run.
Run the Governor's Cup in 2093, you never forget, and came back and run that race in 2007. No, somebody can explain to me that change in form, and nobody ever examined that horse to find out what assistance he got to run like that.
So you missed the Triple Crown by a nostril?
Both times.
That was heartbreaking.
Very much so, right? Here Comes Fudgy. Never forget that one with Alan Mirage. Beat me with King is Born too. instead of by another nostril, right? So those are the things but luckily for me now, in the twilight of my life and the winter of my life in racing, I have a foal now that Philip says, don't sell this foal. This foal is going to give you the last glory in racing.
I'm taking a guess. Is that foal by Miss Chestnut?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And he says it's the best foal that Miss Chestnut has foaled so far.
Okay.
Right, and it begs me not to sell that one.
Okay,
So
so
keep that one.
you got a lot of joy from A King is Born, and
I've got a lot of joy from racing.
okay,
A lot of expenses too from racing.
but particular joy from A King is Born and
Distinctly Irish.
distinctly Irish. Would you say that those successes made up for all the failures in the past and since?
No, I wouldn't say so. You know, there are other horses who did extremely well. Personal Nemesis was a nice horse.
Marlene My Love?
Marlene My Love, other than a stupid jockey ride, would have beaten the Derby winner then.
She's a man-eater.
She's a man-eater then. But anyhow, and then she came to the farm and unfortunately had an accident and broke her neck and she couldn't breed.
Okay.
But I've had some good horses and I've been, you know, very grateful for that. I've also had some bad ones. You know.
Yes. You mentioned the one that raced 18
Exactly.
times and finished last 17 times. But let me ask you this. Your favorite horse, in your opinion, and why?
King is Born by easily by far.
Why?
Any horse that can win from 5 furlongs, setting track records along the way, up to Madonna, must be an outstanding horse.
Okay.
Right, and to be my first Derby winner is even more so.
Okay.
Right? That is the one horse that I'll always have part of my legacy in racing.
Okay. Those are the good ones. Is there a horse that you particularly liked but did not make it?
Marlene My Love. I really love that horse. We won the Oaks, right? And unfortunately, the jockey who rode it in the Oaks had a prison problem. I begged the St. Catherine court to allow him to ride in the Derby. And I had no choice but to find a new jockey. I made a mistake. I should have used Calado to ride the horse because he would have ridden to instructions, right? And this boy, Aladdin, I don't know what went in his head, right? But you saw the race that he ran. Well, I've never put him on another horse of mine. He's winning races now, but he will never ride another horse for me again.
Okay.
Sarah Lee continues now to hold that lead. Marlene My Love on the outside. Thornhill Miss now asked to progress on the rail. Bilingual watches them a close-up fourth. In behind them, Blue Tradition overtaken. Great Faith now beginning to back out of it as they go passing the 3/8 pole. Vice Royalty has more to do. Deal Marker is next and Money Magnet. Something has gone awry. A long way last and out of it as they now come into the lane in the Oaks. And it is Marlene My Love who has that lead at the top of the stretch. Bilingual now asked to lengthen strides. Marlene My Love, the rider, has a peep over his shoulder. They enjoy a 3 or more length advantage. It's held over Bilingual. A furlong to run in the Oaks, and it is Marlene My Love. The filly is sprinting away now from Bilingual inside the final 16th. It is Marlene My Love and Javon Irwin. They conquer them all in the Oaks. Marlene My Love, a great performance.
I are now the president of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association, TOBA. How did you get into breeding, and what are your successes as a breeder?
The Breeders Association was formed back in 1979 by Dr. Rushy Gray. The membership then was Roy Park, Freddie Jobson, Ian Levy, and a number of other people. That was in 1979. I joined the association in 1990, I think it was, when Pat Rousseau was then the president of the association. And it was he who encouraged me to join the Breeders Association. I had then become involved in ham stables when Philip and Clovis Metcalf encouraged me to purchase the shares of one of their owners one of their partners who wanted to come out, a fellow called Harold Morrison. So I purchased his shares and became a partner in Ham Stables Limited. And I used to buy mares, and I had a contact with Frank Stornock's stable up in Canada and got some nice stallions from them and brought them down. I went to Kentucky and brought some horses from Wayne Lucas. Market Rally was one of them, owned by Patio Stables, you remember Padua Stables, who made a lot of computer programs that were going mad. And his daughter was the one who encouraged me to buy that house, Market Rally. Market Rally turned out to be an exceptional stallion, producing, mark my word,
Triple Crown champion.
Triple Crown champion. So my success in breeding is really through Miss Chestnut, Market Rally, and the Triple Crown champion, mark my word. That's the one that's really outstanding. And also Marlene My Love. There are others that I've bred which have never been as successful, but those two stand out in terms of...
All right, that's your personal part in breeding. What about the farm?
The farm has been champion breeder now for 12 years. And even with the pressure of new breeders coming in, we're still going to be champion farmers for as long as we live. Why? Because of the management of Philip Fian, the superb management that he puts in. He goes up and buys mares. Every year we buy new mares, every year we buy new blood, brought new stallions in, and we keep increasing the bloodline in spite of the problems we have with respect to people being in the disposable income bracket to purchase horses at reasonable prices. But there you are, and we keep doing what we keep doing, mainly because of the love and the interest we have in seeing racing going forward. If only we could get a promoting company that understands the niceties of racing, right? And that's another argument, which we'll always have.
So, you had personal success as a breeder. You had success generally with your partners in Ham Stables Limited. What about the association itself? What has it done to?
The association is now the leading association for stakeholders in the racing industry. We have built the association to the point where we are now the spokesperson for price increases and for all the problems that are faced by the stakeholders in racing. The Minister of Finance recognized the problems we had and called a meeting recently where about 50 stakeholders attended. That meeting was, you attended that meeting. That meeting was, he did not want a press present because he wanted a frank and open discussion. One of the significant things that came out of that meeting was the request from the Minister for the promoting company and for the stakeholders to meet and try and resolve the crisis that exists with purse structures. We have had several meetings so far. He gave us 30 days in which to come back to him. I sent him an interim report of what has transpired so far. A final report was discussed at our last meeting yesterday, and to send a final report to him. We have not resolved anything. Maybe I'm not seeing it correctly. I have a factory that produces material for you to run your races. It costs me just under $3 billion a year to produce those animals for your racing programs. And you're offering me $760 million a year. That must be the height of madness and the height of your lack of any understanding of what the real cost of racing is. They keep saying they have no money, they've been losing money. So fine, your situation should be to go back to the government, explain to them what the problem is, and do what every other racing jurisdiction in the country and in the world has done in getting assistance from the government through taxes on lotteries, on slot machines, on betting, giving locks on bookmakers. All over the world they have those programs in place.
Mr. Hamilton, you mentioned the figure of $3 billion to cover the expenses of the professionals in the sport, breeders, owners, trainers, jockeys, grooms, and others. And right now, the purse money available is close to $800 million. I have never heard of a promoting company, apart from the Qataris or the Saudis, who can cover the cost of racing. So is that new in Jamaica?
Well, let me put it this way, it is new, it is nowhere in the world is purse money not subsidized by governments through various levy schemes. In England, it's a betting levy tax based on the well-established Bookmakers Association. In Canada, it's based on revenue from the casinos. In Maryland, it's based on contributions from video lottery games. In West Virginia, and I can go through all the states there. The only state that pays money out of purses from parimutuel only is California, and they are now facing a crisis. We are going back to the government, who had refused casino contributions early on, and they're going back to the government now because it is not sustainable. So everywhere in the world there is examples of how best to subsidize the high cost of promoting and preparing horses for promotion company. So all we are saying to the promoting company is go to the government and go back to the government and try and seek a resolution which is equitable. If you don't, well, we are going back to the government in a final report which we are producing for them based on what he requested from us, to make recommendations how best to subsidize the payments to us, which payments will be handled by the Racing Commission in a special fund, as was done with the betting levy tax back in the 1980s. Right? And that's where our argument now stands. We had hoped that they would have gone with us and worked on that equitable program, but their arrogance and petulance does not allow us to even begin to talk to them again, because they refuse to even recognize the high cost of producing horses for their programs.
You have had a long, glorious, one would say, history in the sport of horse racing. Was it satisfying?
Extremely satisfying and very frustrating. In fact, Carl, as I keep telling my directors, I'm now the winter of my life. Everybody says that out of winter comes spring, with new growth and new blossoms. Right? I want to hand over to somebody else now, who can move this legacy forward. The one legacy I want to leave before I go is a proper sustainable structure for purses, for the stakeholders, for the grooms, for the jockeys, for the trainers, for the owners, for the breeders. And is what is my last, shall I say, hurrah in racing, which I hope to have finalized by September when I get back from Saratoga.
So you are not going to run for president
No,
of Toba?
I'm not going to go back again.
So this is your last session?
This is my last session.
Okay. Taking your horses out of it, meaning especially a King is Born and distinctly Irish, who do you think is the best horse you have seen race at Caymanas Park?
Manita. She's a Manita. Fantastic animal.
Why?
Atomica. Fantastic animal. Right?
Okay.
Those are Mahogany. Fantastic animal. Those have been outstanding horses that have really produced and given a lot of joy to race goers.
Okay. And two of them are fillies?
Correct.
Okay. What about jockeys? Who would you say that, let us say your horses, who would be your personal first choice jockey to mount up?
Emilio Rodriguez.
Why?
Emilio, I never forget. We had a horse called Mouton Cadet, who had won the Solomon Cup, and we entered it in the Derby. And Emilio had choice of anything he wanted, and he chose to ride Mouton Cadet. That was the year of Royal Dead. When we turned for home, we were running third, and Emilio tried everything to get the horse moving, right? And he says, at the end of the race, we went to the run fourth or fifth, I think. He says, boss, we didn't have the class for these horses. Royal Dad won that Derby from here to next door. And you can remember the class horse that Royal Daddy was.
Yeah.
Royal Daddy won 14 races straight, I think.
Yeah.
If not more than that. So, Emilio was my favorite jockey. The best jockeys I've seen ride, George Osang was by far the best of them all. Richard de Baz early on, right? But I've always had a liking for Dean Nelson riding now. I've also had a liking for Neville Anderson. I'll never forget Neville.
Chaka Chaka.
Chaka Chaka. Neville was brought up by the Racing Commission for not trying with a horse. He says the wrong race to carry me up for. It's a race before me never tried. Right? But Neville was something else. Neville used to come to my house where I had horses up there where my daughter used to ride. Moselle was one of them. Fair Verdict was another one. And he used to come and teach my two daughters how to ride. And Neville and myself had this personal relationship going.
Okay.
And he would always come to me and say, look, we can't lose, boss. And believe you me, Neville would answer to lose every time he said he can't lose, boss. Right? But anyhow, I had a personal liking for Neville.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he had some personal problems.
you mentioned Ewa, you mentioned Fitzneum Williams, you were at Wayne da Costa.
Dion Facey.
You were at Wayne da Costa.
No, yes, I went to Wayne da Costa.
Costa, yeah.
And I had a fine out at Wayne.
And you mentioned Dion Facey and a gamut of trainers.
John
Pinchin.
Jose Pinchin.
Yeah. And of course,
Howard Mackenzie.
Philip Fiani.
And Philip Fiani, of course, was by far the best of them all.
Why is Philip the best?
Because he's the finest trainer that ever trained horses in Jamaica. Don't forget, Philip had his introduction to racing with Vincent O'Brien in Ireland. He learned from the very best. And don't forget also, Jason Costa was apprenticed to him, right? And Jason Costa turned out to be, not Jason, Wayne da Costa,
yeah.
Turned out to be champion jockey, champion trainer, right? And Philip is still by far, I consider him the best trainer. Philip has reduced his training activity because his concentration on the breeding farm. But the few horses that he has, he's doing very well with them, right? As I said to you, he has my next Derby winner, which is begging me not to sell, which is the Miss Chestnut foal that I have there, who says that he keeps repeating to me every day, that is the best foal that Miss Chestnut has thrown so far. So please keep that one and let us have your last hurrah.
In closing, Sir Howard, what would be your last cry, your last call, your bugle call for racing? What do you want to happen in racing that will satisfy your soul because you are now in the winter of your life?
A sustainable purse payment system that can look and recognize the cost of preparing horses for your programs and make an equitable contribution to those. We don't want all of it. There's an element of pride, love that we have, and the ego, of course, of owning horses. We recognize that we have to pay for some of that because that is part of our interest and love for the game. But for God's sake, right? Recognize those who can't afford it anymore and need a major contribution, and go back to the government and try and see a re-examination of the development program which we entered into 2017. That's all I'm asking for, the last hurrah you want to have in racing.
Howard Hamilton, former shell worker, former Woolmerian, still the president of the Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association. As you said, your last session. Thank you very much for sitting down with us for this lifetime narrative with QuickGallopJA.com and its YouTube channel, The Quick Galloper.
Thank you very much for speaking with me, right? I enjoyed talking with you as always.
All right.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you for watching another video produced by the team from QuickGallopJA.com and its YouTube channel, The Quick Galloper. Please stay on the channel for other enlightening videos on those involved in local horse racing. Please like, subscribe, and press the notification bell.